Welcome to the Tampa Bay IIBA chapter. Today is March 12th, 2026. Today's BA Masterclass features Tamara Copple. Tamara is going to talk to us about the art of just enough, practical business analysis for small businesses. Today, Tamara is going to explore how business analysis can be scaled down for small businesses without losing impact. Learn how just enough analysis helps entrepreneurs and consultants make better decisions, avoid costly mistakes, and focus effort where it matters most. Let me introduce myself. My name is Thea Soren. I'm the president of this chapter. I've been doing business analysis one way or another for about 30 years. I have authored a few books, I've done a few things, but really the most important thing I do is help you. If you need assistance, please reach out to me. LinkedIn is the very best way to reach me. Let's begin here. For those of you who are new to the IIBA, the International Institute of Business Analysis, we are a global governing body for the business analysis profession. With more than 30,000 members worldwide, 120 chapters, and 7 internationally recognized certifications, we are committed to making the world better one business, one project, and one life at a time. The IIBA serves as the global standard-setting organization for business analysis. Because of this leadership, the most respected and widely recognized certifications in our profession come from the IIBA, grounded in the internationally adopted BABOK guide. And what are the benefits of joining the IIBA? You get access to training provided by chapters literally around the world. You get complimentary access to 25,000 outstanding books, webinars, videos, including the BABOK, and additional resources. You get discounts on certification exams. In fact, the IIBA has recently updated their website. There is so much there, guys. I encourage you to go check it out. Even if you're not an IIBA member, you can get 7 days of free access to the Knowledge Center, and it's quite worth it. IIBA chapters are in most major cities around the world. Imagine getting together with business analysts in your local city and learn and grow and find out opportunities. If there is not an active chapter near you, we can talk about you starting a chapter, or you're welcome to the Tampa Bay IIBA. Members of the Tampa Bay, Florida chapter are not restricted to residents of Florida. In fact, we have participants literally from all around the globe. If you do not have an IIBA chapter, Tampa Bay could be your chapter. Our vision here at the Tampa Bay IIBA is building a thriving community of empowered business analysts. So why would you choose to join our chapter? We offer multiple training sessions each week, including CBAP prep and coaching and an acclaimed SDLC workshop, among other things. You can view our upcoming events here at our website and the updates posted across LinkedIn and Facebook. And at the end of 2025, we had over 200 events on YouTube. We have all those events in Bob's amazing index. Thank you, Bob Churchill. It's rpchurchill.com. You can go and find the events by the speaker, the topic. We've had people come to us to say that they were able to pass their CBAP certification because they used our recording of our study groups. This is our board. These are the folks who work behind the scenes for your benefit. We appreciate them working diligently. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Would you like to share your screen?
No way. It says it's being shared. I am so embarrassed.
It is
Hold on.
being shared. Is
It
it?
is being shared. I see it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I wasn't seeing it. It's just a me thing.
Well,
I'm sorry.
it's okay, Tamara. I will find you later.
No. It's just me.
Okay, good. Well, this is our board. In fact, we have a new member of our board. I will add him for next week. I'm really excited about what they're going to do. As a result of putting on all those trainings and mentoring over 100 individuals just in the last 6 months, the Tampa Bay chapter was awarded the Global IIBA Award for Professional Development Excellence. Pretty proud of that. Another result of all that work is these students have reached out to tell us that our training and mentoring was a big part of their success in achieving their certification. Many of these are past participants of our CBAP study group, and several studied along with us using only our YouTube videos. A majority have gone on to lead IIBA chapters and organizations here and around the world because we make leaders here. Speaking of our CBAT prep course, we've got two CBAT prep courses going on. These are weekly. They take 7 months of study. This one right here is our domestic class. The registration is closed for that. We are full and we are in chapter 3, so I don't want to take anybody else. This one, however, is Saturday mornings at 8 o'clock Eastern time. So that means if you are Central or Eastern time, you might be interested in this. It's really designed for folks that are not in the United States, but have a couple of people from the United States that are in this one because Saturdays work better for them. I want to take a minute to appreciate all of our partners, but our number one partner group is you, IIBA members, and those who participate in our chapter. We've partnered with over a dozen other IIBA chapters worldwide and mentoring 3 chapters that are just forming. We partnered with the Doback Group in the UK and these in the Tampa Bay area. And we've successfully partnered with several recruiting services and training companies. Our goal, as always, is to elevate our BA community. Here's some news from the IIBA. Right now, they have a promotion going on that's free exam rewrite, no stress. Basically, you can take your exam with confidence, and then if you fail it, they'll pay for the second attempt. However, you need to read the FAQs. They want you to purchase it between March 1st and April 30th of this year. And then you take the test, and if you need to rewrite it, you have to rewrite it before May 30th. You have to be an individual member, not a partner or educator or anything like that, but read the FAQs. It's important. This is a great way to have some insurance so that if you take the test, that you are able to take it again free. Our Tampa Bay IIBA chapter is also very proud of our Purdue membership partnership that we created. We have provided them over a dozen mentors that give the students real-world experience. I want to give a big shout out to Esther Faloronso, who has been the Tampa Bay IIBA and Purdue coordinator for all the mentors and the speakers for this program. These sessions are hosted through the Purdue University Online Capstone Growth Initiative for their master's program AI capstone project. And we have, let's see, I just finished mine, and these are the next ones coming up. I'll drop these in the chat after I've finished my intro. But this next one is using AI systems for traumatic brain surgery. And that sounds pretty awesome. This one is assistive technology. What can you not do with AI? I don't know. Another benefit of our partnerships is that we get discounts and special events for our participants. Watermark Learning has given us a discount code, this one right here, Tampa 21, and it gives you, our participants, 40% discount using this code. This is the test bank that I use for most of my classes, and students have found it very effective in measuring how much do they know about each knowledge area. Another discount that we have is from Adaptive US. They specialize only in business analysis. They have over 90 free items on their website and their blog section. They offer our participants a 20% discount on all live classes and on-demand courses, excluding IIBA exam vouchers. Adaptive also has the impressive guarantee that if you take a certification course with them, take the test, and you don't pass, they will pay for you to retake it twice. That's standing behind their training. Now, for your calendars, next week, we have Gaurav exploring how business analysts can play a central role in designing agentic AI systems. We're going to learn how BA techniques such as goal definition, decision logic, constraints, and feedback loops directly translate into agent design and what practical next steps BAs can take to start contributing to AI initiatives today. The week after that, Ugachi is going to come talk to us about how business analysts can champion sustainability using the skills they already apply every day. We're going to learn how to embed responsible, future-focused thinking into requirements, processes, and stakeholder engagement without becoming a sustainability expert. The week after that, Laura Brandenburg is going to come to show us how to move beyond reacting to requests and start operating as a proactive, value-focused business analyst. Whether you are early in your BA career or looking to increase your strategic influence, you'll learn practical ways to anticipate needs, ask better questions, and lead change with confidence. Laura is always a hit, and she always brings good stuff. I hope y'all are able to attend. Looking forward into the future, BA Life Conference is coming to us in April. They have over 30 brilliant speakers and 12 months of access to their recordings, and they're virtual. So if you don't want to get up early in the morning to participate, you still have access to everything. Project Summit Business Analyst World is coming into Orlando April 27th and through 29th. Seamus and Robert will be there speaking again. And Seamus is now helping to organize the whole thing. So if you want to be in person, you can go and check them out and all of the other good things that are happening in Orlando. And then on May 28th, it's the European BA Day 2026 starts. It's another virtual conference out of Europe. And so you can participate in that. I've given you a lot of stuff to look at here, and we have even more on our website on tampabay.iiba.org. We also put announcements for everything we do on our LinkedIn group. We encourage you to join that so you can get all those announcements. And we put everything we do that is worthy out on YouTube. Again, RP Churchill is where you go to get an index of all those YouTube things if you want to find something specific. And now I'm going to turn it over to Tamara Copple. She is going to, I'm sorry, Tam. She's going to talk to us about her presentation. She's going to take questions during the presentation. So if you have something, raise your hand and come on camera and we can ask her. So turning it over to you, my dear.
All right. One moment. I am saving off the PDF in advance so that I can give it to you at the end of the presentation here. All right, let's get this show on the road. Share my screen. All right. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yes, we are.
Yes. Excellent. Thank you. Apparently, I am just technically challenged. When I share my screen, the comments box disappears. So would
I'll
someone
take
like
it.
Theo, would you mind keeping an eye on the comments for me?
I will do so.
That would be awesome. And every once in a while, I need to take a breath. I'll get going and just keep going and going and going. So please don't take that as a sign as I don't want to be interrupted. Raise your hand or get my attention or just talk over me. You're not going to offend me. Okay? All right. So tonight's topic is just a little bit personal for me. A few years ago, my husband and I started a company called Grand River Analytics as a side hustle, just in case either one of us got laid off. Now, we've both been in large companies and been through rounds of layoffs before, so this seemed like a pretty good backup plan so that in a pinch we could hang out our shingle and start doing consulting work. In March 2024, even though he hadn't been laid off, we decided that it was the right time in our lives for Matt to go and do exactly that. So he quit his full-time job as a senior data engineer for a large commercial banking enterprise and went into business for himself. And that put us into contact with a lot of other people like ourselves who were small business owners who were trying to get their businesses off the ground. And the longer I've been on the edges of that community, the more obvious it's become to me that the moniker analysis is everywhere applies in this domain particularly well. Virtually all small businesses have to use business analysis, but sometimes it's clumsy, it's unconscious, and it's definitely not thoughtful and intentional. It's it's a reaction to Laura Brandenburg's upcoming talk. It's a reaction, it's not proactive.
Mhm.
So I've been thinking a lot about how we in the business analysis space can add value to small businesses, even though by definition, they may not be able to afford a full-time business analyst like you or me. So tonight I want to touch on some of those constraints that they have that influence our small businesses before I dive into the mind shift that it really takes for us to be effective in that space. Because I really think that there is a market out there for this that may not be fully addressed at this point. And given all of the fluctuations in the business analysis space, especially with AI, I know it's another scary word, just like Agile BA was back in the days when Agile was a new thing and business analysts disappeared off the Agile teams. We're in our next existential crisis. So I think there's a market here. So I want to look at that more deeply. So the first thing tonight is to understand small businesses are not just mini big businesses. They might not even have ambitions to become big business. They might not even care about becoming Facebook or even a Garmin. In the last few years, I've had exposure, the most frequent exposure to three different types of small business owners: founders, small businesses, and solopreneurs. Founders have got a big idea. They want to build it, cash out, and then start with another big idea. So we call those serial entrepreneurs. They never stay on one thing for very long. They're the fail fast ones. Either they want to grow a business to the point where they can cash it out and then reinvest it in something else, or they want to fail small and move on to the next thing, but they're constantly starting businesses and they're constantly starting over. The second type of small business, think of as your lawn care businesses, your caterers, accounting firms, some lawyers' offices. These are businesses that may have anywhere from a handful to 150 or 200 people, right? And they're not necessarily even thinking about becoming the kind of business that grows and gets sold. Sometimes when you get up to that 200-ish person level, yes, they're going to sell to the private owner is going to eventually sell to like a bigger fish in the pond, but it's not like, ooh, we're going to sell our unicorn startup to Facebook for $1 billion sort of a scale. That's not what we're looking at. And a lot of times those founders are really just looking to build something that is successful for their lifetimes and then close the business down when the time is right and retire on their hard-earned retirement savings. And then the final type are the solopreneurs. And this is an economy that is actually growing. I've been following someone by the name of Brett Trainer on TikTok and on LinkedIn, who has a podcast called The Corporate Escapee. So for those of us of a certain Gen X age, we are finding ourselves more and more frequently laid off and getting tired of that corporate grind. And some of the younger generations, the millennials and the zennials and Gen Alpha, they saw their parents being laid off all the way back in 2008, where they were like, that's not for me. I'm going to live my life according to my priorities, not somebody else's. So the whole workspace area is shifting, and many people are trying to find ways of doing their own thing. So that's the three that I've seen most frequently. All of those kinds of businesses run extremely lean. One person is wearing many role hats. They may be, chief cook and bottle washer is a literal thing in that case. That's not just something they say to be a joke. And waste in particular is much, much harder to camouflage than it is in a big business. So, statistics, and this is the only statistics slide I'm going to show. 99.9% of all US businesses are categorized as small. That means the other 0.9% is actually the ones that are producing about I want 55% of the economy. Small businesses account for about 45.9%, not quite half of our US private sector employment. So they're big. Collectively, they contribute about 43.5% of US GDP and 34.6 of Canada's GDP. Because I gave this presentation to Toronto as well last fall. And so they're heavy hitters. They balance each other out. This is a third to half the market, depending on how you want to count it. So now let's talk about what keeps small business owners up at night. First, there's the pace of change. Technology and regulatory conditions change daily. If you are feeling a little uncomfortable with how fast AI has taken over the world, just think what it's like for the baker who isn't on their computer all day, or the guy who's trying to run his lawn care business, or the farmer who has 10 or 15 employees. That would be considered a corporate farm, by the way. I grew up on a farm. Small businesses have to keep up with all of these changes without the small army of legal teams and IT experts that big companies can afford. So it's no wonder that about 65% worry that AI or privacy rules are actually going to long term hurt their operations. Small businesses are scared of it, what they don't know and what they don't understand. And they don't have time to dig into it. They have to make the time to dig into it. Second, finding the right people can be a problem. Hiring isn't just hard, it's it's life sucking. One in three small businesses has open positions, and nearly half of those can't find qualified applicants for them. Yes, tech has had a really rough few years. The last, when I was in college and getting my MBA, full employment was still considered 5% unemployment. That 5% unemployment was considered generally enough slack in the economy for people to move around comfortably where they were needed. And now we're between 4.3 and 4.6% unemployment, and people are panicking saying unemployment is high. I have a bit of a different perspective on that. So owners are facing this painful choice. They can hire someone who's not ready or not qualified and spend extra time and effort to train them up, or they can do the work themselves. Either way, they pay a price over time in stress and in the amount of work and maybe lost revenue because they just can't do everything themselves. I went to my chiropractor's office the other day, and parking lot was empty except for me and what was apparently her car. And I walked into this office that was clearly meant for multiple people working there and multiple doctors. And she was at the front desk and she checked me in. And I said, "What happened to your receptionist?" She said, "I couldn't keep a receptionist. I am so sick and tired of spending time trying to keep somebody hired. I decided I was never going to do that again. I'm just handling everything myself from now on." And I don't know how she's keeping a whole medical building to herself with a one person practice. So that's just kind of one of the examples of stresses that she has to think about as a small business owner. Finally, fragility. According to JP Morgan Chase, the average small business only has about 2 weeks worth of expenses if their revenue dried up today. That's not cushion. That wouldn't be cushion for your refrigerator. That's not cushion for anything. And that exact thing happened for a friend of mine. If something happens and your revenue dries up or has to dry up for a while, how are you going to stay in business? Last summer, a friend and mentor of mine who is a solopreneur and a career coach was told by her doctor that she had a tumor growing in her pituitary gland in a place that was difficult to access, basically behind her nose. It was benign. That was good. But her doctor said, more or less, we're going to go in through your nose to get this tumor out because it was causing her to lose her vision. And he said, we're basically going to go in through your nose. It's a very short procedure, but you're going to have to be off of work for 8 weeks, and you are not allowed to do anything more strenuous than watch television. No reading books, no client interviews, no podcasts, no thinking, no doing your book work, no hustling for new clients. Netflix is the most strenuous thing, and you better not be watching anything that stresses you out. She spent 2 months trying to figure out how she was going to keep her business going when she had to be out for 8 weeks, most of her summer. And she did, she made plans, but she had to do a lot of rearranging of her life as a solopreneur to make that happen. She is also a widow. When I say it was just her, it was just her. There was no other spouse to help contribute to that. So these are not theoretical pressures. They influence how owners perceive and risk and weigh cost versus benefits. So helping them get clarity quickly and taking that burden off of them is a way that we can help. And breathe. Any questions about that so far?
We have
I
no
think I see
questions
your
yet.
nothing yet, Thea.
Nothing yet.
Okay. Okay. So, what do small businesses actually need? Short version, they need clear and timely decisions. So let's say a business owner wants to buy a customer relationship database. One of the first things you figure out is how am I going to keep track of all the people that I'm leaving door hangers on? And if they actually call me back, are they prospective clients or are they, they're leads? How do I keep track of them? There's a huge number of CRMs out there. You can start with a free version of HubSpot. You can keep it on an Excel spreadsheet if that's what works for you. But they're out there at every single price point. A small business owner who goes into that marketplace and says, I need a way to keep track of all my leads and my customers and not lose anybody, they need a way to analyze what their options are without going into mental overload. We know how to do that. We're going to ask questions to isolate, okay, what are they really trying to get out of that CRM? What are the most important things that that CRM needs to do for them? Like not losing track of a client's invoice or making sure everyone's paid on time or following up with leads to turn them from warm leads into actual customers. And honestly, one of those options that we would give them might even include not buying a CRM. They may not need one, but that may not be where they jump to because somebody that they've been listening to in their circle of other entrepreneurs goes, oh, yeah, we've been using HubSpot and it's great. And somebody else brings up another, .io version of whatever. They're immediately going, oh my gosh, do I get Microsoft Dynamics or do I go for Salesforce or do I buy HubSpot or what do I? And then all of a sudden they are in indecision hell because they don't know what to ask. They don't know how to evaluate. They're just looking at a cost. How much can I afford? Not much. So, business analysis ensures that solutions directly address their actual business need, enhancing their success and satisfaction. And when I say satisfaction, I am including stress relief in that. One of the first questions that I was posed when Matt and I started our business was website or no website. We're a consulting business. We're not exactly advertising ourselves on a regular basis. So, do we have a website or do we not have a website? In small business circles, those opinions run both ways. And there are very strong opinions in both directions. We know how to answer that problem. What answer do we have for this question? What is the problem that you're solving with your website? And next, a focused effort. A business owner, whoops, I went too far. Hang on, one more. There we go. A business owner might spend, let's just say it's a typical Saturday. Small business owner might spend his Saturday morning sitting on the bleachers at the kids' soccer game, half paying attention to the game while he scrolls through pricing on 10 different CRMs and trying to make those decisions on the fly using a mobile phone. You, as a business analysis professional, know what kind of answers, know what kind of questions to ask, and know what to look for in the answers. Let's think about that effort. That person who's sitting on the bleachers, thumbing through potential CRM systems while watching his kid game, isn't making a good decision because he's not focused on the problem at hand entirely, and he's not focused or present and mindful for his child. Who's he actually helping? Nobody. In the end, no good business decision can come out of that because your head's not in either game. Business analysis puts structure around a process that business owners are partially intuiting on their own because they have to, but they're not as effective as you will be in executing on it. So, what's our advantage? Empathy and expertise. Your value as an outsider looking in is that you can see things from an outsider's perspective. And that gives you, it's the classic example of you can't see the forest for the trees. When you're in the middle of the problem, it's really hard to see all of the dynamics that are around the problem. And it's hard to see the environment that you're in. So getting that fresh perspective alone from someone like you just is going to be vastly different than their other peers that they're talking to. You remember that website question that I brought up earlier, to have a website or not to have a website? I've been part of all those conversations. And in our small business networking groups, they would ask things like, our peers would ask things like, well, what are you going to do with it? What do you want to put on it? Are you going to do blogs? Are you going to have it hooked up to an LMS so that you can offer online classes? How are people going to know it's there? How would you market it? What's your purpose? Are you going to take bookings off of it? Not one person ever asked us, what problem are you solving with a website? We know exactly what it looks like when you jump into solutioning before you've actually defined the problem. And every single one of those peers jumped right into solutioning without defining the problem. Furthermore, you know how to apply the appropriate techniques to determine a really viable course of action. You're an expert in how to think in this space about solving a business problem. Most BA techniques actually do still apply. They just have to be scaled down and right sized for the situation. The bigger the company, the more opportunities there are for waste. Overhead builds with every single strategy meeting and requests for proposals and purchase orders that are needed. And every person that gets added to that end-to-end process adds complexity. And every time that complexity is added, waste has another place to hide. So in big business, one of the ways that we can add value is by peeling away those layers of bureaucracy, or at least shining a light into the corners to expose the essential business process. In the age of AI, when Claude or Copilot can give you a full-blown marketing plan in 5 minutes, your ability to empathize and to build a relationship of trust with these small business owners is what's going to set you apart. Because yes, they can go to Claude or ChatGPT and say, hi, I'm a small business owner of a gluten-free bakery, and I want to grow my business by 25% in the next year. Give me a plan for this. And yeah, they can come up with something. Is it going to be a good plan? Eh, depends on how good their prompting is and how good they ask the questions, right? I would argue they don't know what they're doing well enough to be able to get a viable business plan out of either tool. But you do. You can figure
Yeah.
that out. So think about that. When was the last time you actually saw one of your stakeholders look relieved that you helped make a situation better for them? And what does that feel like for you to know that if nothing else, that you took a burden off of someone? That is a connection that AI can't make under any circumstances today. Our edge is in our humanity and our ability to empathize with people. But to do that, we need to get out of our mental box of corporate speak and acronyms and try out some different mental models. So let's talk about that mindset shift. The first thing that we want to do here is scale back to scale up. What we are doing is making sure that what the answers that we provide, the solutions that we end up recommending are good enough to start, that they're good enough to learn from. Very small experiments. What worked? Great. It sucks. Chuck it. Let's do something else. Um, when we were advertising Casey Bad, we said, should we invest in LinkedIn advertising? I don't know. Is this going to get us enough eyeballs? Well, let's invest something that we thought we could lose. It's kind of like gambling. Let's invest something that we think we can lose and see what our return on investment is. And what do we think of that? Well, this wasn't worth it for us, or yes, it was worth it for us, or we think we need to spend more on it, right? It helps, every small experiment helps make a decision in the right direction. And it helps to illuminate the next step on the path. The second shift is thinking scrappy by applying creativity and resourcefulness in your problem space. When I say think scrappy, um, my husband Matt is a data engineer, and he's a really darn good instructor and an amazing mentor. Yes, I'm biased, but that's also true. He and one of the things that he's been talking about and has seen a lot of need for is senior data engineering courses. There are tons of Udemy courses and thousands of entry level courses out there at every price point imaginable. But at a certain point, you become a senior engineer and you've got problems that aren't easy to solve anymore. And you need an entirely different paradigm for how you solve those problems as a data engineer. So, one of the things he talked about doing was starting his own um, training platform and teaching classes. And he never got it done. I say this from personal experience. He never got it done. And one of the reasons is because he spent a long time wishy-washy about getting an LMS, or whether he was going to go to Udemy, or whether he was going to go to O'Reilly, or whether he was going to go to Manning and get it done. I'm like, dude, put your class together, throw it up on Eventbrite, advertise it on LinkedIn, and see who signs up. Take zero money. That's an experiment. You got to think scrappy. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Chuck it and move on to something else. The third part of the mindset shift then is to systematize everything by documenting what is repeatable so that it can be delegated now and automated later. The person who's in the middle of making the recipe, making the donuts is not, they know their recipe well. But the next time the junior baker comes in the door, they have to train that person to do that job. How do they do that? So they have to know what the steps of the process are that make their donuts the particular donuts that everybody in the world wants, and be able to pass that knowledge on. And then the step beyond that is, what are the things that we can automate? Maybe it's order taking. Maybe it's automated payments. So that's the third kind of mindset shift. Deep diving. Let's do a little deep diving. When I talk about scaling back, I mean, think in terms of establishing foundations and frameworks, not a full-blown delivery plan. Small businesses need structure, not overhead, and simplifying the complexity in that removes barriers to action. Notably, that excuse, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed by the options. Start an Excel spreadsheet with with their name and their address and their phone number and their email and maybe the last time that you talked to them and a note about what that interaction helped. Start there. If they discover that they need another field of some kind, add another column to the spreadsheet. Eventually that spreadsheet's going to get sophisticated enough they will know those starting requirements for a CRM system. You're looking for a CRM that gives you that kind of flexibility. Lightweight systems lay the foundation for growth, are inexpensive, relatively speaking, and they allow the business to pivot if it needs to. It doesn't lock you into anything that you're stuck with in perpetuity. The trick here is to be small and nimble and make tiny investments in experiments. One of the memes in our industry is fail forward. But in a small business, there's not much room to fail because your margins are probably not that big anyway. So they don't have those deep pockets to use for recovery, and they have to take calculated risks. So this is where that meme comes into focus. Fail small, fail forward. Tiny experiments. If putting a class on Eventbrite doesn't get anybody, you can examine why, or you can say that class wasn't going to be popular and you can try a different class. So getting clarity on strategies for growth sets the foundation for that scaling later. A marketing director that I once worked with said, we aim for good enough to learn so that we can pivot quickly without wasting a lot of money. And at that time, I worked for a nonprofit, and she was talking about donor acquisition, the recurring donor acquisition. And that made a lot of sense to me. You do just enough of an experiment to figure out if that was successful or not. What was successful about it, and is it enough to keep going in that direction? What wasn't successful, and do you want to put more energy into that, or do you want to change something about it? Change a variable, as my chemistry professor colleague would say, change a variable now that you have a control and see what happens. Think scrappy. When I use that word scrappy, I mean that businesses are usually run by someone who is determined, who is resourceful, and very hard to discourage. They're not afraid of hard work. They can surprise and impress you with their ingenuity and their creativity. Scrappiness also implies a certain amount of charisma and passion for what they're doing. Grassroots political organizations, for example, have to be scrappy. They often start with a few passionate and charismatic individuals who say, "Who's with me?" and then scrape together a movement of volunteers before getting enough momentum to start garnering large donations, and only then can they start investing in staff and technology. I'm going to use the example of the Me Too movement. Black Lives Matter. And lately in the state of Missouri, there are two initiatives going on, and the one that I am involved with is called Respect Missouri Voters. I won't go into politics, but I can tell you it's 100% volunteer led, and it's my first foray into the political volunteering realm. And it has been a fascinating look at how scrappy grassroots political organizations have to be. But here's the thing. Charisma and passion are only wasted energy if they're not being funneled productively. Most startups fail, and that can happen for a lot of reasons, but one of the big ones that I've seen is that the founders are great with ideas and they suck at execution. They just can't get the job done. They talk a really good game and they may even get some spectacular round one funding. But if they can't figure out how to organize that energy effectively and operationalize and solve their business problems, they can't build a sustainable framework for growth. On the other hand, scrappy doesn't mean sloppy. It means showing up with grit and creativity and common sense. It means most small business, well, I should say, most small business owners, they already behave in this way. We're just helping them do it with more intentionality. So, real world example. I'm going to use the example of an entrepreneur who dreams of that bespoke training. This was my husband. And I've already talked about this to some extent, so I'm going to gloss over it a little bit. This entrepreneur says, I want to deliver project-based training where students write their code as they learn so that they learn the material faster and better. You and I can listen to that and immediately know that's an epic. That's a whole initiative. There is so much packed into those words. But he's going to try and eat that whole elephant at once. And he doesn't have our brain. So he starts trying to problem solve. So, well, let's get here. He says, I need a platform to deliver my training, but I don't know the first thing about learning management systems. I want the platform to be easy to set up and tear down because I'm going to have to set up environments. They're going to do their code, and then I got to rip it down so that I don't get charged a bunch of time by AWS or Snowflake or Google or whatever. And I need to figure out how to put it up and rip it down in record time so that I don't get charged too much money. I need a paywall to put my coursework behind so I get paid for it. How am I going to make this available on the internet? How am I going to accept payments? How am I going to connect that payment system with my bank account? How am I going to handle all the refunds? So these are all the kinds of questions. And at this moment, I watched my husband do this. His head is starting to explode with all of the questions. Each one of those is its own problem to solve, right? But he's looking at it as one giant thing and he's going, ah. And we've all been in a state of paralysis, right? This is where we come in and say, take a breath. Which, speaking of that, I think I saw something come up in the chat. Did I see something in the chat?
You did. We have two questions. One is, how could you volunteer for a small business to help them? She doesn't want to be an employee. She wants to be a volunteer. What do you think about that?
I like that idea. I'm going to recommend that you look for an organization called 1 Million Cups. And it is a networking organization specifically for small businesses and entrepreneurs. Also, look to see if there are any accelerators, small business accelerators, either attached to your local university extension or potentially Sprint, when they were in Kansas City, used to have a small business accelerator. But look for small business accelerators and see if they would be interested in letting you mentor. I'm betting that they would love to have you for free. I've also seen small business classes offered by my local library system. So you could go to the front desk of the library and you could say, I am interested in doing small business volunteering and mentoring. How could I get involved with that? Any of those places could help you. 1 Million Cups is its own organization, but those others are viable as well. Excellent
Okay.
question.
Yeah. And the second question is, so we're basically applying strategy to their scrappiness in order to create structure and focus.
Say that one more time.
So we're basically applying strategy to
Uh-huh.
their scrappiness
Hmm.
in order to create structure and focus.
Yes. Yes.
Well
You know, when
done.
your toddler is bouncing off the rails, they're bouncing off the walls, they're so excited, and you need to take them someplace where they can just let out all that energy, but you need it to be focused in a way that tires them out for nap time without destroying your house in the process. And you take them to the McDonald's bouncy house, the McDonald's play place, and you let them run around while you take a breath for a minute. Give them some give them some guardrails and structures and let them experiment. You're helping, all you're doing is providing some bumpers. And you're saying, don't go everywhere all at once. Try staying, try keeping your bowling ball in the middle of the lane instead of in the gutters.
Mhm.
I know, I'm Metaphor City.
Okay. That is all the questions. Let's continue.
Okay, so in this case, I'm going to come back to what I called the one page experiment. And in the one page experiment, you talk, the idea of the one page experiment is here's the problem that I'm trying to solve. Here is one tiny little experiment that I can run to try to see if this would be successful. In this case, I said, actually, I can go even scrappier than throwing your whole event up in Eventbrite. This came from Mike Kim, the author of You Are the Brand, and he was describing a similar problem. He said, if you're not sure if the workshop or the class that you want to offer is actually viable for your audience, advertise it and say, "Hey, I'm working on a new thing. Get on my wait list now to be among the first to hear when I go live." And and the first 50 registrants get, I don't know, a 10% discount or whatever it happens to be. And he said at that point, all you have to do is you're collecting names of interested people, warm leads on a Google form. That was his one page experiment. Float the idea, see who responds to your Google survey. If nobody responds to your Google survey, if it doesn't meet the threshold, let's just say I need 20 people to make my class viable. I'm going back and forth between classes and workshops and things, but let's just say it's a class. And as the person delivering the class, you decide I need 20 people to make this class viable. And you get 5 interested parties. What did you learn? There's a lot. It doesn't necessarily mean it was a failure. It means maybe the way you presented that class wasn't right. Could be the class isn't right for that audience. Maybe you didn't market it in the right way or to the right people. So, having learned that, what do you want to do next? You can either chuck the class altogether and try a completely different class, or you can tweak the experiment, or you could tweak the class. I have 5 people who are interested. Why don't I send them a follow-up email and say, this is what I was thinking. You're one of my early, you're one of my early interest folks. I want to get your I want to get your feedback on where I'm going with this so that I can build a thing that you are really going to find valuable. That's another way that you could go about doing it. So the point of this is that they really haven't spent much. And from that tiny little experiment, you can make lots more decisions. And they don't all have to mean failure or success. It means change a variable. That's the one page experiment. You have hypothesis. You define what it means if it's successful. You decide how much you want to spend on it. You build that experiment, then you measure that experiment. You're building and then you're executing that experiment. You measure it, and then you take away your lessons learned. How many pieces of that are things that we do every single day? Especially those of us in the agile world who write user stories all the time. We have acceptance criteria. If we're in more of a traditional environment, we have our budget constraints. We really want KPIs to tell us how well did we do. When we're in an agile environment, we have retrospectives. What did we learn from this? How could we do this differently the next time? So, super, super easy doesn't have to be expensive. Scrappy. So, this is how it ends up looking. I think my class is one that a senior engineer is going to want to take. I want 25 people to join my wait list in 30 days. What is the least expensive way for me to gauge interest? And then you pick a number. I'm going to spend no more than $100 advertising on LinkedIn, or I'm going to put my Etsy shop up on Instagram for 30 days, or whatever it happens to be. You build the experiment, and then at the end of it, you say, well, how many people signed up? What happened? All right. So the final piece, systematize everything. I'm a process person. I like my activity diagrams and my process flows. So the point of a small business cannot scale unless it has repeatable, teachable processes. And if a process can be taught, then you also need to ask the question, can it be automated? Is it appropriate to automate it? So that's an option. Systematizing even simple processes creates mental space. And I'm almost right here at 7 o'clock. Going long. So here's what I'm going to say. We've already talked a little bit about opportunities. If you want to hear more about opportunities or talk through some ideas, hit me up again. I'd be happy to put those out on LinkedIn as well. So thank you for that suggestion, or thank you for that question, because that's a really good question. I mentioned that I became exposed to the small business needs just very recently, and that it had to do with Grand River Analytics. Since we launched, I've been reading books, I've been listening to podcasts, I've been listening to stories from lots of small business owners. And what I've come to believe is that small businesses need business analysis just as much as the big companies do. They just can't afford to hire us full time. So if you're interested in that problem space, the volunteer opportunities are something that I mentioned. You could hold a community class through your extension. Often the school districts do that too. You can speak at chambers of commerce. You can connect with your local economic development corporations, your small business accelerators, and so forth. You could consider a career as a small business coach. I'm also going to suggest that business development not be in code for sales. I would also like to suggest the idea that if you are one of those who chooses to go solo, you might consider the term fractional. Fractional is what it means when an expert in their field goes part-time and they offer contract services. I apologize for taking you right up to 7 o'clock. I am perfectly willing to stay on afterwards to continue talking on this subject, but here's all the ways to get a hold of me.
Well, I want to thank you, Tamara. You brought us some really good things and made some people think. I tried to put links to everything that you talked about into the chat so people could just click on it. Uh, Bob added a difficult problem is getting small business owners to even understand what your value as a BA is and why they should pay for it. Uh, Many business analysts are a brand new idea to a small business owner, just like they are to some larger businesses. So you might have to show them the value that you can bring before you can start charging them for it. You have to determine your boundaries there.
Hmm.
Thank you for a great presentation, Tamara. Thank you for giving us links. If you want to send me this document whenever I send out the email tomorrow to all the people that attended, I will include the link. I'll include the meeting recording so that people can watch it. And I'm sure that you are going to get some questions uh, and maybe some appointments.
I would love to have some conversations with folks. This has been
I
really
think
exciting.
it has.
Punchline, I know you're leaving, Thea, but the punchline to all of this is Matt ended up going back into corporate in December. I'm now trying to figure out how I go solo.
Okay. Maybe we need to have a talk about that. I
So
have some ideas.
we'll
Okay.
we'll think about that. Yeah.
Right. Thank
All
you
right.
very much, everyone. Thank you for participating in this and giving us good questions. Thank you, Tamara, for presenting to us. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another fantastic presentation next week. Same place, same time. I hope that you invest in yourself and you come and participate and join our community. If you're interested in getting more involved in our community, reach out to me on LinkedIn and we can have a conversation. I'll talk to y'all later. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Talk to you later.